So one of the first Muslim women to serve in Congress, Democrat Ilhan Omar, says that she has faced increased death threats following a controversial tweet from the president. President Trump tweeted Friday, "We will never forget," and interspersed video of comments by Congresswoman Omar. Now, this was a retweet, so interspersed those comments with footage from 9/11. Omar responded on Twitter accusing the president of hate speech. She said that this is endangering lives. It has to stop. Ed O'Keefe is following the story from Capitol Hill.
The president's not trying to incite violence against anybody. He's actually speaking out against it.
White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders defended the president's tweet on Sunday, saying the Congresswoman has a history of making offensive comments.
Democrats refuse to call her out for it. If she continues to do it, the president will continue to call her out.
In a statement, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi demanded the president take down the video, saying hateful and inflammatory rhetoric creates real danger. And a number of 2020 Democratic presidential candidates criticized the president for taking his attack too far. Congresswoman Omar was speaking to the Muslim civil rights organization CARE in March when she made these comments about the World Trade Center attacks.
CARE was founded after 9/11 because they recognized that some people did something and that all of us were starting to lose access to our civil liberties.
Texas Republican Congressman Dan Crenshaw was one of the earliest critics, calling her comments unbelievable. Following outcry from Democrats, he followed up Friday, writing, "When someone calls out a public official for things they've said, it is not endangering their life or inciting violence. Claiming otherwise is just an attempt to silence your critics." Congresswoman Omar has repeatedly faced controversy over perceived anti-Semitic comments. In February, she apologized after suggesting American support for Israel is motivated by money from the Jewish lobby. The comments were condemned by members of both parties, including Speaker Pelosi and President Trump.
And a special thanks to Representative Omar of Minnesota. Oh, I forgot. She doesn't like Israel. I forgot. I'm so sorry.
Over the weekend, Congresswoman Omar defended herself, writing, "No one person can threaten my unwavering love for America."
So Ed O'Keefe is joining us now from Capitol Hill. To start things off, Ed, how are Democrats responding to the president's tweet targeting the Congresswoman?
Well, among other things, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has asked the U.S. Capitol Police to do a security assessment for Congresswoman Omar out of concern that there could be threats against her life, more threats against her life. She's actually faced death threats already. There was an incident earlier this month with a person who's a self-professed supporter of the president who threatened to kill her. Death threats against members of Congress are nothing new and, frankly, unfortunately happen all too often. But they especially happen when issues like this one kick up, where sort of Twitter spats become a reason for people to threaten violence. You talk to security officials up here at the Capitol. They've been fielding thousands of threats against lawmakers every year, especially since the president took office. And in the wake of the situation with the former Majority Whip Steve Scalise, they've had to take them far more seriously in recent years. But beyond that, you saw over the weekend all the 2020 presidential candidates, Democratic presidential candidates, essentially rushed to her defense, saying that, you shouldn't be inciting people or even suggesting that perhaps violence is some response to what she said. Others defending her specific words, which is that she was not dismissing the 9/11 attacks, but was speaking about how in the wake of them, people were using them as an excuse to limit the civil liberties of Muslim Americans. Perhaps the most interesting exchange came from the House Judiciary Committee Chairman, Jerry Nadler of New York, who was on one of the Sunday shows yesterday, pointing out that he represents part of Manhattan that was directly affected by the attacks, or he did at the time. His district's been redrawn ever since, and says, no, I don't take any offense to what she said specifically in this instance, but I take great issue with the president trying to make a thing out of it and perhaps suggesting that people should seek some kind of retribution.
Ed, as you know, the president is actually headed to Minnesota today, not far from
Right.
Congresswoman Omar's district. Do you expect, have you heard from those around the president and from members of Congress that he'll keep up those attacks once he turns up in Minnesota?
We haven't heard that he will do that. But obviously, if he wanted to, it would be a perfect location, given that, as you said, he's going to be pretty close to her district. Amy Klobuchar, who's running for president, who's Minnesota's senior senator, had a previously scheduled event yesterday and said that the president better not go there, that to be suggesting harm against any member of Congress is a bad thing. But he is ostensibly going to talk about taxes. This is tax day, of course, and so it's expected that he's going to focus most of his comments on that.
Okay, now I want to talk campaign 2020 with you. The president, or CBS News, has learned that President Trump's campaign raised $30 million in the first quarter. How significant is this? And, you know, what does it mean for the president's campaign moving forward? Because as I understand it, a lot of those donations are pretty small.
Right. Well, and actually the Trump campaign and the Republican National Committee, just as we were coming on the air, confirmed what we had learned last night, that they have raised a combined $76.1 million in the first quarter and have a, as they put it, striking $82 million cash on hand. The Trump campaign claims it has approximately, I'm just reading here from the release that just came in a few moments ago, approximately 21 times more cash on hand, or more money in the bank, than the Obama campaign had at this point in the re-election cycle of President Obama back in 2011.
Are you serious, Ed?
And it's true, because we've never seen a president so aggressively fundraise for his re-election campaign this early in the cycle. And as you point out, the low dollar or the small dollar donations are impressive and on par with what Democrats are seeing. 98.79% of first quarter contributions to the Trump campaign and the joint committees of the Republican National Committee came from low dollar contributions defined as $200 or less. The average donation to the Trump campaign was $34.26. That's a slightly higher average than some of the Democratic campaigns, who have raised far smaller sums in this first quarter. And to put it in comparison, $30.3 million raised by the president just exceeds the top two money raisers among the Democrats, the roughly $18 million raised by Bernie Sanders and the roughly $12 million raised by Kamala Harris. So a sign that even while polling suggests it's a tight race, when it comes to money and grassroots support, the president is certainly on par and exceeding them, and in many ways exceeding history and expectations right now.
Sticking with money, Ed, Senator Bernie Sanders is set to release 10 years' worth of tax returns today. Explain the significance of that and what we've learned from tax returns released by other candidates.
Well, he told us last week in an interview he would release them today, and reporters have been asking for them for several months, wondering what it is that the senator from Vermont might be obscuring or hiding or trying to clean up before he released his returns. He told us in an interview last week they would come today because he's planning on releasing 10 years worth of returns. You might wonder, why is this a big deal? Well, first off, he didn't release his returns back during the 2016 campaign. And despite all the talk about President Trump not releasing his returns, that wasn't yet an issue when he was still facing Hillary Clinton in the primary. It wasn't until the general election, when everyone realized he probably wasn't going to release his returns, that the issue of releasing tax returns became a thing. So he told us last week that because he's since published a book that did quite well, he is essentially now somebody who earns at least 7 figures. That's a new place for him. We'll see how his supporters and others respond to that, but given that he has spent years, of course, railing against upper-income Americans in this country, it'd be interesting to see if he adjusts his tone on that at all. Outside of him, we've seen many of the other Democratic presidential candidates release their returns. Kamala Harris yesterday releasing 15 years worth of them. Elizabeth Warren, Kirsten Gillibrand, and others have released about a decade. We could sit through them and try to find something interesting. Bottom line, there isn't much, because many of these people have served in public office and therefore aren't necessarily enriching themselves any other way. Sometimes you just have to look at what their spouse may be earning. But nothing so far really sticks out in anybody's returns. And of course, we'd all like to see how much the president has made and what exactly might be in his returns. But that day may never come. We'll see.
No. Under audit.
Under audit.
Ed, thank you so much.
Take care.